Hello there, everyone. You know who I am, ETTemplar, Supreme Misfit Professional Dipshit, and this content is made possible by the fleet captains, people who donate their time and money to this channel, and special thank you to viewers like you. So we are looking at a plane, a little preview for a plane by Stavati Aerospace. And before we get into it, I'd like to remind everyone that this company hasn't produced a single working prototype and hasn't made any real plane. People allege that this company is kind of a grift and a con to grift global people into fleecing them out of their money in the name of a aerospace company. And let us get right into it and hit play. And if you're looking at this plane, thinking, yeah, that's a plane that can't fly, you don't need to be an aerospace engineer or engineer to figure out that the design of this plane is god awful, and we'll get into it after the preview. But it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie or Ace Combat game. So a lot of people are gonna look at this and say, yeah, that looks badass. I mean, it kind of does. It looks like something you'd see. It does have a cool look, but its practicality looks cool, but it's not. Up to Mach 4. So for those people don't know, that's this plane supposedly goes 3,000 miles per hour. Only 84 million per unit. So if you're watching this and you got that kind of fuck you money, you can buy a shitty plane that doesn't exist. Okay, so we're gonna pause it right here. I'm gonna get into my non-engineer opinion. Now I've been around planes my entire life. My dad and family would go to air shows, so I may not be an engineer or an aerospace engineer, but if you look here at the tail section, we're gonna get fancy here, chat. So right here, this tail section here, and this one, there's no way that if this plane travels at 3,000 miles an hour, it seems like the fins or the elevators, I think they're called. Someone can correct me on that. But these are the fins that, go up, down. But you would have, like, if this thing's traveling at 3,000 miles an hour, those do not look structurally sound. If you see, there's like a thin part. All right. You see this thin section here? Remember, this plane has a top speed of 3,000 miles per hour. It has this little part here. So if this thing is in fact a real plane and some poor bastard is going to be a test pilot, they're not going to be a test pilot for too long, because this shit is going to just shatter right here. And these are just the back, the tail section of the plane. Now, my next issue is right here with the cockpit. And of course, at 3,000 miles an hour, you have all this air rushing through here. Now, of course, they got this bullshit design, like the air is going to go around the cockpit here. But this right here in the crotch of the wings, that too, if you have a whole lot of, wind speed and just air rushing through there, it's more than likely going to bend forward or back, because so this plane would have to be made out of some extraordinary metals to survive the speed with this kind of design. Now, I went to Grok, and I posted a picture of this plane, and I said, Would this plane be flight capable? So I'm going to read this for you guys. By the way, this is going to be a long video. Hopefully you brought some chips, some snacks, and you enjoy yourself. All right, so here we go. The aircraft in the image has a highly unusual design, resembling a broad, flat, symmetrical shape with a central cockpit and no clear visible traditional wings or control surfaces. Next, Tesla suggests it might be conceptual or promotional design, of course, possibly related to the Tesla or a futurist process. No, it's not. This is supposedly Stavati Aerospace. Rather than a conventional aircraft, here are some considerations regarding its flight capability. 1. Aerodynamics. The broad, flat shape could theoretically generate lift. Theoretically. Let's see where we're at. Theoretically generate lift, moving at high speed, which like a lifting body design, e.g. in NASA X-38. However, the lack of visible control surfaces, e.g. ailerons and rudders. That's also the fins. If you've seen F-14s, the vertical ones that go like this. Raises a question about maneuverability and stability. Modern aircraft rely on these surfaces to control pitch, yaw, and roll, and their absence of unconventional placement could make flight challenging without advanced flight control systems. 2. Propulsion. There's no visible indication of engines or propulsion systems. That's because I took a bad screenshot. Which are critical for generating lift needed to overcome the drag and achieve flight. Without clear propulsion mechanism, it's hard to assess how this aircraft would take off or sustain flight. Now, Beskar and Stavati claim that this engine system here is both a terrestrial and space engine. But later in this video, you'll hear Beskar talk about a ramjet, a turbojet engine or something like that. But that's not interstellar. You would need fucking rockets. You need rocket engines and an oxidizer to feed the thrust. So there's no way in hell this brick is doing both terrestrial and extraterrestrial flight. And not only that, the pilot inside would need a fucking spacesuit. And I highly doubt you're flying into space with a typical, just a canopy. As it gets real fucking cold and re-entry into Earth's orbit, you're going to need something to shield over that. So, of course, this is me being over-analytical because the average person, even, no offense to anyone's intellect, can look at this and say, yeah, that's not doing terrestrial and extraterrestrial flight. Okay, so let's keep reading. Structural integrity. The design appears to be lightweight and possibly made of advanced materials. Yeah, that's going to be more than $85 million if it is some composite alloy, titanium, steel, composite, whatever. But the large surface area and high structure might be prone to stress or deformation under the forces experienced during flight. So, what that's saying is in layman's terms, as we already said, the structural integrity of this aircraft is going to be under stress. Here on the ailerons and fins. And yeah, this thing, if you're a test pilot for this, Godspeed. Say hello to Jesus for me because you're going to be meeting him if you're test flying this piece of shit. Let's see, where we have propulsion, deformation under the forces of experience during flight, of course. And remember, this thing's rocking at 3,000 miles an hour. And if your air structure, the airframe of this aircraft, is not structurally sound, or okay, now we're laughing and making jokes, but if they actually have a working prototype, the guy flying this is entirely fucked. But more than likely they don't have one because it's all just concept. Conceptual nature, the exaggerated shape and the whatever branding suggests that it might be a conceptual or artistic rendering rather than a functional prototype. And of course, like David Wilcock and Beskar, they don't have a working or even just a fake frame for this thing. But I think everyone knows that Stavati Aerospace is fake as shit. Just opinion, not fact. And that is this plane, whatever it's called. This thing, it looks cool, and even a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of let's just say educated fans of David Wilcock were saying, "Oh, this is like the coolest thing ever." Yeah, but cool points don't count if it doesn't fly. And if it does fly and gets torn apart by the forces of speed and a bad airframe, it doesn't matter how cool it works because it doesn't fly and it's infunctional. And for $85 million, there's easier ways to waste that money. All right, so that's the problems with the plane. Again, I'm no engineer, aerospace engineer. I just ran some shit through Gronk. I gave my own opinion about this as just a simpleton that loves planes. So without further ado, let's continue the rest of this video. Space flight enabled. Which again, it's lacking the propulsion. It's lacking the propulsion. There's no way, unless if you have some Star Wars level horse shit, that you're getting extraterrestrial flight out of these two engines. There's no way in hell. And not only that, the one thing I noticed with engines, you need intakes in the front, right? Because you need air to go through the engine to fuel the fuel and combustion of the jet engines, right? Because some of these, when the afterburner cooks off, it shoots fuel into there and it ignites. Afterburn. So, in layman's sense, we're even missing air intakes along the top and bottom, like most fighters. But then again, this is fictional horseshit anyway, so that's here nor there. So we're only a minute 21, and let's just continue, shall we? So the Stavati SM-39 Razor, yeah.
Hi there, I'm David Wilcock. I'm a member of the board of directors of Stavati Aerospace, and I also
And this guy spent, I think, is over $1 million to get that title. That's money he ain't getting back.
As a producer and a talent in over 100 episodes of Ancient Aliens on History Channel, which has become a very popular show. They rerun it all the time. The SM-39.
It's not a popular show. It's that History Channel hasn't gotten any new talent or ideas for shows, and they run Ancient Aliens bullshit because, let's face it, they run that late at nights. It doesn't mean it's a good show. I mean, I personally love and watch Ancient Aliens, but come on. That's just a nitpick, sorry.
Is Stavati's major next-generation air dominance fighter. And it actually came out of a long-standing need to replace not only the F-22, but the F-15.
The F-22 is still a pretty capable aircraft. It's not as new, but the F-22 Raptor is very capable, maybe large, but it's not needing a replacement. Same thing with the F-15. But
on a global basis within Allied Air Forces, and of course the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy. We first started working on this design.
That would not work for the U.S. Navy because it has to go on an aircraft carrier. That's, the F-14s, or no, the old Corsairs had wings that would fold like this, right? So they can be stored on the aircraft carriers. Now, if you saw that Razor, that's a little bit too chunky to be placing on an aircraft carrier. So when he says Navy, unless if they have a smaller, sleeker design that the wings can, there's more space. I don't know exactly how many of those you could fit on an aircraft carrier, but that plane's a big piece of shit. I don't think you can hold too many on an aircraft carrier.
Back in 2010, under what was then a next-generation Air Force fighter program. And we came up with 25 different design configurations. Many of them twin-engine designs, some of them single-engine designs. Could I just stop for a second? So just to slow it down, the next-generation air dominance, so what is the next generation of what? And what is the use of the plane exactly?
Because I'm not sure I quite caught that.
Surely. The nature of this airplane is it's a successor to the advanced tactical fighter of the late 1980s and 1990s. And that was the F-22. And so this is really intended as an F-22 follow-on. It's considered a sixth-generation fighter over a fifth-generation fighter such as the F-22 or the F-35.
Okay. So next generation means sixth generation. And now I know that with your impressive background in aerospace, you've really been doing this all your life. There are some very exciting materials science breakthroughs that come out of developing something like this.
By the way, David Wilcock, this is fair use. We just have to say that fair use and opinions is transformative work. I guess, I don't know. Fuck you, dude.
And I know that part of the issue is like, this is a very, very fast aircraft. How fast does this plane actually go?
Well, this airplane design is a little bit different than other fighters. We went through a period in aviation where we had large engines, and due to composite construction and other material limitations, they weren't going very fast. This particular design is a next-generation fighter intended to operate at speeds of up to Mach 4 and beyond. So it's a
Mach 4.
It's a Mach 4 air dominance fighter. That's not to say it can't fly slow, because it can. It has an approach speed of about 85 knots on a carrier deck. So it can go very slow. It can.
There's no way that piece of shit is maintaining lift at 85 knots to land on an aircraft carrier. Sorry, that thing looks like a brick.
Also go very fast. So it's extraordinary in that sense.
Is there anything faster than Mach 4? We saw the Top Gun movie. He made it to like Mach 10 or something.
Sure. Well, there are real aircraft that do fly faster than Mach 4. Of course, the space shuttle regularly does that, or did that. The X-15 flew at speeds greater than Mach 4.
Like on its approach back to Earth?
Well, yeah, in orbit, and it orbits at a very high speed. The X-15 got to higher speeds of Mach 7 and beyond.
But you're doing Mach 4 in the atmosphere, not in space.
We are doing Mach 4 in the atmosphere, yeah.
So that's
at about 40,000 feet and above.
Right.
And mind you, no one's seen this fucking plane. What this guy is saying here is unsubstantiated horseshit. I mean, yeah, I like, let's take this for example. Everyone, I'm designing the X-87 combat destroyer. It can fly at Mach 11. It goes terrestrial, extraterrestrial. It's got laser guns. See, and anyone could say, yeah, that's a horse shit, dude. That's what we got here. If they even had one of these, this is such clearly a tell and a scam. But I can't. People buy this bullshit, believe it or not.
Right. So it's a very fast airplane, and at sea level, it has a cruise speed in excess of Mach 1.5.
So if you want to hold it up for a second, or I will, right? We'll start with that. So when we look at the cockpit here, Chris, it's very small. I mean, this looks like it's a massive aircraft.
Well, it is a very big airplane.
Okay.
It's about 72 feet long.
Whoa.
It's intended to be a large air dominance fighter. It's like the size of an F-14 or an F-15 or an Su-27. So it's really the American equivalent of a Sukhoi Su-27 type airplane.
Well, it also reminds me of the
No, because the Sukhoi isn't that fucking big. Let me look up, what's the length of F-18? If F-18 is 56 feet, so he said 77 something. So that's about 24 feet longer than F-18. And let's go Sukhoi. Sukhoi, what, 31? Sukhoi 31 is about, oh, that's in metric side. $95-inch. All right, we're going to skip that. But
one that we saw in the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
It's
the SR-71.
The Blackbird. It's similar in many ways to the Blackbird, although it's shorter than the Blackbird.
Oh.
It doesn't quite have of that mission. It's more fuel efficient than the Blackbird by a great margin. And it will be...
Yeah, because the Blackbird flew so fast that the airframe warped. Okay, so when he says it's more air efficient than more fuel efficient, that's because the Blackbird in its materials, it would haul so much ass that would heat up and it would morph the plane. It would leak gas because the thing would haul so much ass and get so hot that the frame would warp and get hot. So them saying that it's more fuel efficient, bullshit. Because if this is faster than the SR-71 Blackbird, it's going to have the same problem because everything in physics relates to the rules of the area, right? I'm showing my ignorance here, but the SR-71 had like issues with that because it gets so hot. And good luck with a titanium steel composite of a plane being $85 million, especially in this day and age. But
powered by 2 next-generation variable cycle afterburning turbofans.
Variable cycle afterburning turbofans. Okay.
And these engines are variable cycle in the sense that they go from being a turbofan to being a turbojet. And at high speeds, it's a Mach 4 turbojet. It operates nearly like a ramjet. And we have a proprietary design for this engine that will be produced by our engine division.
So if it's a turbofan and a turbojet fuck stick, both of those require oxygen to run. So when you say it goes terrestrial to extraterrestrial, not with a turbo like jet and a turbofan, I think. Because that shit requires rockets and oxidized fuel. You know, like a missile. You guys can laugh at me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure both of those... Oh, man.
As neothrust, or we can produce an aircraft that uses engines from either Pratt & Whitney or General Electric.
So let's say as a customer, I want...
Neothrust? What the fuck is neothrust? I'm making up Star Trek terms here.
I want to be a little cynical. I want to rough you up a little bit. I want to say, hey, man, you guys haven't built one of these yet. How are you so confident that you're going to break all these records and do all this stuff?
Well, it gets into the fundamentals of aircraft design. A few years ago, it came out that there are next-generation air dominance fighters that are being digitally designed and tested. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. This is a digitally engineered aircraft. It's something that is based upon firm engineering principles.
So does that mean you fly it in a computer?
We do fly it in a computer, and it has been
How does that work?
Well, you have computers.
So he's saying all this shit, and they haven't even had a flyable fucking model. One, good luck finding a guy to fly that brick shit house. 2, he said they only flew it digitally. So what he's saying here, all this stuff he just talked about, is bullshit and theoretical. Oh, man.
Simulation software that's quite accurate. It uses panel methods to characterize.
It's not advanced. You used flight simulator. You used a modded flight simulator. You made a plane and you put it in like an old version of flight simulator. That's what it looks like to me.
As aircraft flow, and we use CFD, computational fluid dynamics, combined with finite element modeling for structural analysis. So this is something that a great deal of engineering has already been put into it, and the airplane has already been flown thousands of hours in the design process.
And I know that one of our material science breakthroughs
digitally, as in fictional. It hasn't been built and flown by anyone because you flew the simulator.
on this is going to be the cockpit, because
yes,
you're going to melt at Mach 4, right? So we have to have new material.
That's probably one of the most exciting parts of the airplane. And this aircraft, it's like the proverbial NASA spin-off.
Yeah, I'd like to hear you explain this one.
Technology center, where many of the innovations and breakthroughs from this airplane will be spun off into the private sector and revolutionize everything from cell phones to fish tank aquariums and things like that. We have a new material.
Because you could have a very hard and clear new material for the glass on your cell phone,
Correct.
right?
That's correct. And so we have a new advanced transparent material that's a high temperature material that sustains impact at very high speeds.
Well, we can say it's a transparent metal, right?
It is a transparent
Yeah.
metal, that's correct.
So people don't even realize that exists.
Well, it's something that a lot of laboratories throughout the world have been working on for many years. They were developed in different countries like Ukraine and Russia were working on these technologies for a long time, as were laboratories throughout Japan and Korea and, of course, in the United States. And
Well, if I could just interject, in one of my books, I wrote about transparent aluminum. That was in the Ascension Mysteries. And I talk about the prototypes that have already come out, that we've already tested in labs. They're 500% stronger than bulletproof glass.
correct.
That's just incredible.
What labs? What tests? Source us. Source us. Document what. Oh, the Habsburg-Bergman tests. There was actually a composite aluminum that was a mixture of aluminum, titanium, and steel. That we added a surcoat of translucent beneficence that bent and translucified the metal. And if you do look at our research on www.Habsburg-Bergman Advanced Metals, you can see it's not that hard. What I said there was a better fictional thing than they just said.
Yeah, it's an amazing material, and it comes out of a need to have a bird strike impact resistant canopy. So this airplane is designed to have a bird, like a goose, hit the canopy at about 500 knots.
You might make a lot of people really sad, though, Chris, because if we start making cell phones out of this, when they want to throw their phone and make it smash, it won't smash, right?
No, it won't really smash. So you have a very neat display technology.
So that the cell phone makers might be like, oh no, how can we sell it if it's never going to break and scratch? Have a problem.
Well,
But that's for them to figure out.
That's for them to figure out. And that same kind of flat panel screen technology is the sort of thing that we're doing with the canopy. If you notice with our design, we don't have a traditional heads-up display, nor are we using an expensive helmet-mounted display.
Like the F-35.
Like the F-35. Instead, we're projecting all the sensory information.
Question, is this translucent fictional bullshit metal heat resistant? Because again, if you're going from terrestrial to extraterrestrial, that's going to have to suspend quite a lot of heat re-entering Earth's atmosphere. Not only that, but you know how expensive that would cost? Like, let's say if you say tungsten. Maybe there's some kind of tungsten polycarbonate or tungsten alloy. Like, I don't know where they're coming up with this $85 million price tag per unit, because in reality, I'm trying to make sense out of something that's bullshit. Pardon me.
Directly onto the canopy. So your heads-up display is totally immersive.
Wow.
And this is another proprietary technology that we'll be featuring on all of our military aircraft and many of our civil aircraft.
It does kind of sadden me, Chris, that when you look at the outside of fighter jets, they look really cool. And then when you look on the inside, it's like Charlie Brown.
Well, it is. A lot of the cockpit technology hasn't really kept up with our level of technology. Same thing with landing gear, in my opinion. But this is truly an innovative canopy and cockpit as well.
That sounds really cool.
So it's a very advanced cockpit system.
That's if it resists the heat leaving and entering Earth's atmosphere, and not counting if it flies at all.
We're still using a very standard F-16 type flight grip and throttle grip. And the reason we're doing that is because the F-16 really pioneered a lot of amazing features with respect to hands-on throttle and stick.
The Fighting Falcon, it's the joystick on the side, I think.
And so there's an easy transition from, say, an F-16 type flight control system to this airplane. And that's fairly standard on all of our designs. So while we have a very advanced cockpit, we're giving people a familiar flight grip that has been proven and familiarized, as well as a fairly proven throttle system.
So their adaptation to this aircraft will be a lot faster.
That's correct. So
you don't need to learn all new skills.
That's right. And the airplane itself will be teaching you how to fly it. So this is an aircraft that benefits quite a bit from our
Now you're going to say you have AI in it, huh?
our synthetic intelligence, which is our approach to artificial intelligence. And the airplane will be able to fly itself if desired. We will be making unpiloted versions.
Well, I'll just say I've seen some really incredible footage of the F-22 and the acrobatics that it can do. And he kind of goes up like this and he's doing all this amazing stuff. So what kind of maneuverability do you have?
Well, a lot of that gets into thrust vectoring, and we also have the 2D thrust vectoring. This aircraft will be more maneuverable than an F-22 in the sense
more
that
maneuverable.
Has a lower wing loading.
Well, of course, since it's a fictional concept, you can say it's more maneuverable than fucking anything. Remember, they only flew this digital. As in video game shit. Simulations. These guys are trying to sell products that they haven't done and haven't made yet.
It has more optimized flaps. The wing itself is, despite its appearances, the wing itself is configured for super maneuverability. And moreover, if you look at our configuration here, we have these very large vortex strakes. These are large leading edge strakes that do two things.
Strakes?
Strakes.
You were calling them bulkheads when we talked before, but I'll go with strakes.
Well, they're strakes.
Okay.
And so what they do is, as you're cruising at high speeds, they push the Mach cone way out so that your wing is always inside the shockwave cone. So while the airplane may be flying at Mach 4...
Wait a minute, hold on. I'm not sure I understand the Mach cone.
Okay, so as you're flying, as you approach the speed of sound, there's the sound barrier, so to speak.
So Mach 4 is like 4 levels higher than the sound barrier?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's 4 times the speed of sound.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is there's a shock wave that forms off of any object as it travels at the speed of sound, and its angle is dependent upon the speed. And this airplane is optimized such that as you fly at high speeds, your wing, the actual wing itself, is behind or within the shock cone.
Right, so the shock starts here, but then it has all this time to accelerate before it actually hits the wing.
It's also here.
So this actually absorbs the shock before that happens.
That's correct. It's like a piercing system or on a boat or something like that. It's like the bow of a boat.
Like a catamaran, right.
Correct.
You see these boats with the 3 hulls.
That's right. So it's kind of like
they're really fast. That's the whole point.
So you could say this is a really fast flying catamaran.
It's a catamaran.
So in that sense, your wing really is never traveling at those high speeds because it's always embedded within the cone. And so that's the cool feature. Additionally, at slow speeds, it does 2 amazing things. One, you've got an aircraft that has a strong vortex coming off of it, and that vortex re-energizes your wing. So these are like canard foreplanes.
Like if you want to pull behind an 18-wheeler and get the, what do they call, hypermiling?
Sure, or something like that.
And the vortex from the back of the suction of the air from the 18-wheeler, if you park your car and you just drive in that spot, supposedly you burn less gas. It seems really dorky, but
well, that's,
some
I've
people
done
do
a lot of that.
You have done that?
Sure, yeah, it works for me. But in this airplane, it's like you see on the F-18 or on the MiG-29 or on the F-16 to some degree. You got this vortex generator. Additionally, like the F-16, you have your air intakes underneath your vortex generator. So as you increase in angle of attack, you're not cutting off your airflow to the engine. So that's one huge benefit over the F-22.
Because this surface is catching air even as it goes up.
It's pushing the air as it goes up. So
whereas if you didn't have that there, the air would totally cut.
No, if you're going at Mach 4 at 3,000, you pitch up like that.
Cut off, and then what happens to the aircraft?
Well, you could potentially stall the engine.
Oh my gosh!
So
you get more maneuverability.
You get more maneuverability.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very maneuverable, and it's something that you find in an F-16, but you never find that in an F-22. You don't find it in an F-35.
You want to know the difference between the F-33 or F-35, the F-22, and the F-16 and the F-15? The real difference between those and this one? They actually fucking fly.
You won't even find it in an F-15 or a number of other aircraft. Even the F-23, which never went into production, it has similar characteristics in some respects, but not to the same degree. So
if you want to turn it over so we can see the top in the camera here.
Oh, like this?
Yeah. These are the line of the jet. I mean, they got the intake up here, and there's this huge amount of space before it actually exhausts down here. Does that have something to do with why it's so fast?
Well, it sure does. We have a variable geometry air intake system in the aircraft. So we're
Variable
actually
geometry
manipulating
air
the
intake.
It's an internal compression system. We have large engines.
See, the funny thing is, this could all be like mumbo jumbo, made up fucking, just science talk, and it sounds legit. They actually sound like they know what they're talking about. But even me, as a total rube, that doesn't know a whole lot about this, my bullshit meter. Variable intake.
And we're also doing something special with the exhaust, and we can do something special with the air intake. And by special, I mean we can manipulate the air using both temperature and electromagnetic effects. And so this is a stealth airplane. It's a low observable airplane. But low observability isn't just related to the radar cross-section. It's also related to the sound signature, the aural signature of the airplane, how much noise it makes, and also the infrared signature, which is very important. And sometimes...
Right, I remember you said we can't have like a knob or any point that really pokes out on it because that creates a radar signature.
That's correct. And this airplane benefits, it's a next generation stealth technology that is planform independent. And what I mean by that is many stealth aircraft rely upon something known as planform alignment to make sure that they're stealthy, that they don't reflect radar energy back to the receiver.
And so they probably absorb the radar.
In our aircraft, we've gone beyond that. The material itself on the airplane is configured to enable, it's a active stealth technology. That's probably the best way I can put it.
Stealth configured.
It's more than just, it's not radar absorbent material. And this is a very important feature on this airplane. Many aircraft that are stealth have radar absorbent materials.
Like the bandpass material?
Well, bandpass material or the...
Okay, and that would mean, just so people, in case you don't know, that there's a material that you go through at the beginning, and the radar, it's partially permeable to that, right? But then there's another part of the material that changes the radar signature inside.
That's correct.
And that's part of how stealth works.
And so it gets stuck. You trap the radar.
Right.
So that's part of what we're doing.
Okay.
The other thing that we're doing is we have an airframe that is much more maintainable. On the F-35, the F-22, even the B-2, one of the major problems is keeping the skin stealthy. And we don't have that problem because we're not using that type of radar absorbent material at all.
And you don't also have that problem because the aircraft that's only flown in a simulation versus the B-2, the F-22, the F-117 Nighthawk that actually fly.
This is a rugged radar material. It's actually the airframe structure itself. So you don't have to maintain the structure to maintain a stealth surface. It will always be stealthy. And this is a major breakthrough. It saves literally millions of dollars in maintenance costs. It reduces our maintenance man-hour costs significantly.
Well, you talked about stealth butter or stealth putty, right?
Putty. You know, this airplane, it doesn't have any rivets. It doesn't.
Well, let's explain that for those who don't know.
Sure. Well, if you look at an F-22 or an F-35, there's a lot of external fasteners. And those external fasteners are hidden from radar using a stealth putty or a stealth butter, as we like to call it. And so it's a substance that's like a caulk that you put over these fasteners to make them invisible to radar. Well,
because if you're traveling at supersonic speeds, you're going to need bolts and things to keep the plane in one piece. Because if your plane has weaknesses in the airframe and you're going at supersonic speeds, I'm so excited to see how they bullshit their way out of this one.
Well, we don't have any of that. We don't have any fasteners.
But part of the drawback also, though, is that it always comes off.
It comes off.
So everybody is painting putty on the plane every time it lands.
So it's a high maintenance issue. And so we eliminate that problem. So we have an airplane that, especially for naval use, this is something you can put in a saltwater, in a seawater environment, on a carrier deck, and not have your stealth technology be compromised.
So just a very, very simple question. Is there anything better than this once it's built? Anything that would...
So you're saying your plane's not made out of metal? So your plane's not made out of metal. Traveling at supersonic speeds, terrestrial extraterrestrial. Oh, all right, Captain.
Outperform.
You're the captain of this crazy boat, and
As far as you know.
No, as far as fighters go, no. I know that we're in competition with both Lockheed and Boeing, and to some degree Northrop for.
No, you're not. You're not in competition with Department Defense arms manufacturers.
Next generation air dominance designs. But stated frankly, out of the 25 designs that we submitted to the Air Force, from what I've seen that they're working on, it isn't this advanced. It's more like some of our other earlier designs that did not innovate these core innovations. This airplane, when you show up to a gunfight, you don't want to take second place. You know, and this particular
You don't want the slow gun.
No, you don't. And so the way this airplane will terminate its adversary.
Well, if your plane is actually fucking fly in the first place is the issue.
Areas is it can be cruising easily at 100,000 feet at Mach 4 and wipe you out before you even notice.
Wow.
And this leads to a whole new family of.
So that's why they call it
systems.
dominance, right?
It
dominance.
will dominate the sky.
You'll dominate the air.
And so it's an aircraft that will be fitted with our.
Remember that everything they're saying is hypothetical bullshit. They have no flying prototype, and everything about this, they said, has been digital and in a simulator.
Proprietary gas dynamic laser weapons, directed energy weapons. And this is something to be noticed. We're pioneering gas dynamic lasers. We've been doing this for over 20 years. Gas dynamic lasers are different than solid state lasers. They're different than a lot of the other lasers that other companies have been developing and focused on for a long time. And the advantage is that we're drawing laser power directly off the engine system. And that allows
off the engine
system, yes.
Oh my gosh, so you're powering the weapons with the engine system.
We are, and it's the thermal energy off the engine, not the electrical energy. So we're not.
So when you say gas dynamic, is there a hot gas involved?
There is a hot gas involved. And so we're using the state change of a hot gas that's thermally pumped to generate a megawatt range beam. And so this is a multi-megawatt beam that can go over very large distances. And we're using this for both offensive capability as well as defensive. So if we're intercepted by, if we have a radar, if we have a missile threat, for instance, we can intercept incoming missiles, we can intercept incoming drones.
Well, Chris, it doesn't really sound great because, I mean, you've seen these movies, you fire one off and then you hear this beep, and you got to wait for it to charge. And your enemy knows exactly how long that is, and he's just going to nail you before you can shoot another one, right?
Well, that's what's really neat about this. It's a continuous thermal charge. It's pretty much continuous. I mean, it recharges very rapidly. You're getting out 100 shots per minute.
There's so many other video games that have done this. Ace Combat had a plane with laser shit on it. There was another plane, Project Wingman, that had laser-related stuff. And the problem with all this is modern laser technology requires a fuck ton of energy to fire and use. Like when it's on ships, that requires not only are these laser or chemical lasers and shit like gigantic, is that they take up way too much energy to be practical. That's why we haven't seen laser stuff. So until that technology gets like microtized and perfected and come up with an energy source that can charge and give real lasers that power, it's a pipe dream. And him saying that they have some kind of thermal bullshit that runs off the engines, and of course, because again, when your bullshit plane is theoretical in practice and in simulator, you can make all kinds of wild shit like this, like 100 shots per minute or more, because you haven't built a real fucking prototype.
My gosh.
It's very rapid, and it's far more lethal than a 20 millimeter cannon round.
And you've said that, basically speaking, the gas dynamic laser makes a lot of these projectile weapons obsolete.
It can. That's not to say it won't carry missiles. And in this airplane, we have 2 weapons bays that we can carry a rotary launcher. We can carry up to 8 AIM-120 size missiles, and up to quite a few AIM-9X size missiles as well.
Sounds like a lot.
It's a lot.
It can do a heck of a mission.
Do a heck of a mission. It carries more internally than an F-22 or even the YF-23 would.
Now, could any plane fly a longer mission, a longer amount of distance than this?
Well, that's part of the neat thing about this aircraft. It carries quite a bit of fuel in its conventional powered version.
Which is going to require more weight in your 77-foot, was it? 70-foot length?
Conventional powered, I mean, it would be powered by JP8 or other jet fuels, JP5, what have you. But because it's a variable cycle engine and we're using our metal matrix, high temperature metal matrix materials in that engine, we're operating at a higher temperature. And so this engine is thermodynamically more efficient. So we're actually to a point that the afterburner doesn't make that much difference on a percentage basis for the thrust produced by that engine, because we burn so much oxygen and so much fuel in the combustion process that we're getting very efficient.
All right. If you want to see the rest of this, I'll put a link in the description if I can find it. It may take a while to find this actual video. But I'm full off of bullshit at this particular juncture. This plane, again, they said it was only simulator and flown digitally. So they don't have the variable engine, because he didn't state that they made one or made experimental engines for the ramjet and regular intake, whatever bullshit engine. It doesn't exist. And he didn't say they actually had a working laser prototype. If you notice, when they were talking about all this, there was no actual test footage. Like if they actually had a functional laser that worked off thermal air, you would expect to see a short little clip of them shooting a, I don't know, a target in front of a concrete block where it's going, right? But yeah, basically, that just wasted everyone's time. But this entire prototype plane is bullshit. It can't fly. The technology doesn't exist, and it's all theoretical. They have not produced one viable flying prototype. And if you are chosen to fly this prototype piece of shit, Godspeed, because you ain't coming back. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it entertaining, interesting. See you next time. And as always, in closing, special thank you to viewers like you, the fleet captains. And if you want support, if you like what you saw, there's links in the description down below. And if not, that's totally fine too. That's a-okay. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and a comment. That always helps as well. And yeah, God bless. Stay happy, stay healthy. And Stefani Aerospace is bullshit.